Welcome to Becoming a Better You podcast. In this episode, two men in inflatable couch with Dr. Marc Bochner and Garino Bonin.
Go! So guys, welcome to Inflatable Couch Time with Marc and G. So today we're so low budget that we can't afford real couches and we're in basically a construction zone. So today we really don't know too much of what we're talking about. We're just gonna kind of go and get our perspectives. So the first thing we want to talk about is that Carl Weathers died.
Carl Weathers died.
And so for those of you who don't know, probably best known as Apollo Creed in Rocky. And when I say that to you, what pops in your head when you hear like Apollo Creed from Rocky? Because I know what pops into mine.
Well, I mean, you know what pops in my mind is honestly Rocky 3.
Okay.
When he takes him back to Philly, right, to train where he trained and learned to be a fast fighter. And then running on the beach.
Definitely running on the beach.
Jumping in the water and hugging like man style.
With the nice shorts.
The short shorts. Yeah.
So for me though, his body.
Well, I mean, Carl Weathers was a ridiculously good-looking guy. I mean, he was
a linebacker. He was a linebacker.
Was he a linebacker?
Yeah, that was the headline.
Huh.
Versus I guess most people would know him as Apollo Creed.
I would assume. I mean, he looked like a bodybuilder. He was very cut, very well built. I mean, that was 1976 too. So
when the juice was flowing.
Well, I mean, think about it. I think he looked at his biggest for Rocky 4. That's when he was
before he
big.
died in Rocky 4.
Before he died in Rocky 4. But I think that's when he really like beefed up. Because he was a big guy. I mean, he was a good size.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, like Sylvester Stallone, I think he's only like 5'6".
Yeah, he's not super tall.
Right. Hopefully this isn't a family-friendly podcast now because the contractor swore, but we're good.
I know, I caught that one.
But yeah, I think it's like, you know, I was actually watching the Stallone documentary.
I have not seen that yet.
It's good.
It's very good.
Yeah, and the only thing that really stands out to me from that, which he's profound, right? Like, I think when you have so many experiences in life, it just gives you this depth to pull from.
Yeah.
But the one thing he said was, everything's addition until you hit 40. And then once you're 40, everything's subtraction. And I think I told you that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I have my own perspective on that because, I mean, that's going under that mentality of 80's my limit. Okay. I'm no longer valid after 80, right? So therefore, I count up to 40 and I count down to 80. I mean, I'm still counting up.
Yeah.
I don't really see why I'm starting to count down yet.
I saw it more as like people leaving. Like people transitioning
people in your
out.
world, people transitioning out.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose people around you.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the people around you. That makes sense. But saying that, I'm not seeing that yet in my world. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I see it, thankfully not personally, but like the people that we grew up with. You know, I mean, it could even be like WWE wrestlers, right? Now, obviously, they had their own thing going on.
Yeah.
Back with the steroids and dying early, but stuff like that, people you looked up to. Obviously, with, I think, both of our mentalities as far as like positivity, outlook, right? Your body doesn't necessarily have to decline like you think it. It only declines as you think it would decline.
Exactly. Well, and you know, if I were to give this a little better perspective, now that you just mentioned that, if you're thinking like Stallone would be thinking, in my mind, I guess, I mean, their entire careers were based around their presence, right? I mean, look at Arnold. I mean, he'd talk about the ultimate like childhood hero for people that grew up in the 80s as a young man,
sure,
right? That's why we all work out, half of us.
100%.
Right? It was pumping iron. Did I ever tell you about pumping iron?
Your story about it?
Mike Katz in pumping iron?
No.
He was my health teacher.
Really?
Yeah, at our high school in Hamden, Connecticut.
Did he make you watch it?
No, he didn't. But Mike Katz always looked like Mike Katz. That's an aside. So anyway, it's like, you know, influence was there in my life. But think of Arnold now, right? In his 70s. Bypass surgery, open heart surgery. He still exercises. He's still out there. He's still doing everything. But he's not the same Arnold anymore.
Yeah.
Give him a few more years. Maybe when it's 80, maybe he won't be relevant anymore.
Yeah, and I think...
And in that sense, I understand what Stallone is getting at. He's not his relevance for who he sees himself as in the society, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, and also, I mean, your peak was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? So I think that's one of the things with like child stars, like when you know how they have like the dopamine, like the fix?
Sure, yeah.
Right, so if you're a child actor and you're hitting all levels of dopamine with sex, drugs, rock and roll, like, now when I say sex, like over 18, but like you're hitting all those things, you have everything accessible to you, and then you don't.
Right.
Your brain's already used to all the stimulus.
Yeah.
And now you crash and burn because you can't find that again because you're not as relevant.
Right.
As
Everything that you brought in as a stimulus to make you feel good.
And nothing's on that level anymore.
Right.
Right. I
Yeah,
remember
that's not there.
because I'm huge on you like documentaries?
Yeah, of course.
So the Bon Jovi documentary, and he talks about after a concert with all that energy, and then you just go into the hotel room by yourself.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, it's like, here's the highest of highs, and then
it's just back to zero.
you're just alone in the hotel
Yeah,
room.
alone in the room.
You know, do you ever, like, when you're, say your clinic is crushing it, you see 30 patients that day, everyone got good treatment, and you're souped up, and then you kind of like, I mean, you have a whole family, but like, you go home and it's like...
That brings up a whole nother, I think, aspect that maybe should be touched on here, right? So is it more important that you're climbing to 40 and then you're dropping to 80 in relevancy for your world, or did you do the smart things and increase your world so that when those dropped off, you had other things?
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So for me, I do, yes. So when I'm running the clinic, right, when I'm treating and I'm the owner and, you feel like you're the guy in the center of the room and everything's revolving around you, yeah, it's kind of a high, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when patients say, oh my God, my PT, this guy, you got to love this guy, blah, blah, and then, they're inflating your ego. And then you go home. And now you're just the same guy you were since you were little.
Yeah.
Right? That persona's gone.
With a lot of the same insecurities.
Right? They were always there. You just took the ego away.
Yeah.
You took that dopamine away.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't notice that because when I get home, I'm quickly changing hats.
Yeah.
Right? Now I'm dad, I'm a husband, I have obligations, right? I didn't have enough time to start to go, oh shit, it's just me.
Yeah.
Now it's like I rapidly shifted to, well, they need me for this. She expects this of me, and I'm being relied on for that. And I can turn to her for this. And you changed total perspective.
Yeah, I'm big into Bashar, and what they say is like every moment you're a new person, right? Reinforced by the beliefs that you assigned. So, but the thing is, with humans, we always reinforce the same beliefs.
Well, yeah,
from day to day,
right? Yeah,
because it's a physical reality, and
you've been conditioned.
You've 100% been conditioned, but like, everything is so physical that like your brain is like so conditioned for that like right now I'm a new guy in a new parallel universe, and now I'm a new guy in a new parallel. You know what I'm saying? Like your brain's not even like the way we learn or have been taught. That's not from birth, so it's like hard to understand that. But that's how reality really is, according to Bashar, right?
According to Bashar, according to quantum mechanics, it's a constantly, every millisecond is another opportunity to switch
into something else. Which means that like you can be a different person. You're a different person instantly when you choose to be it. But what happens is
you instantaneously switch back.
Yeah, because you then look at your surroundings, which didn't change.
Yeah,
and then you don't.
No, I'm still here.
Yeah.
It's that's a whole different. I don't know how we got to there from Carl Weathers. But that's the
beauty of the two inflatable couches.
Inflatable couches will take you places.
But we talked about this on our podcast before about like men having the role models of the 80s.
Yeah.
Right.
Delineations were a lot stricter.
Sure. Right. 100%.
Men having those role models in the 80s.
What do you think about that though? Like, it's kind of interesting because from a man who was born in the 80s, right? Like I'm conditioned, but I'm assigned that men have certain characteristics they need to bring to the table, right? Now,
Yep.
the other side of me is like, you can do whatever you want in your life.
Right.
You can live it, I don't care. Like,
But you still have that conditioning
Yeah.
telling you that I need to be like this.
100%.
I should be like this.
I should be like,
I want to be like this.
Right, because that's how I grew up.
Right.
Right? And the new generation's different, which I totally respect.
Yeah. Well, I had a prepared answer for you, and then it went into this little ball. But I'm bringing it
Keep
back.
rubbing it,
I'm
it'll
bringing it
come
back.
out.
Yeah, I'm bringing it back. I think what I was going to get to is I almost looked at this at one point in my ramblings with somebody in the clinic. You know, when you talk about the younger generations having a totally different viewpoint. Now, they don't just have a different viewpoint on gender roles and, they don't have singular people as their role models anymore. I mean, you have an entire internet full of
Yes.
YouTubers and influencers and Instagrammers and TikTokers, and you've got gamers twitching, and it's like the amount that they take in. Plus, it's a free space. So all these people with like, you can be transgendered, you can be cross-dresser, you could be whoever you want to be. And in that space, no one will ever judge you. But they take that in free of judgment to themselves. You and I lived in a different world.
Yeah.
If somebody approached with that different viewpoint, the dominating forces that would be shut it down. Self-preservation. That's why that happened, right? This one's different. Collectively, we shut that one out and we elevate ourselves. That's how that worked. And we grew up with that. And so our challenge is to, once again, if you were to think quantumly, like leave that paradigm and say, I choose to be whoever I want to be. I still want to be a masculine person, but that doesn't mean I have to act that way, right?
Sure.
With those chauvinisms, and I don't need to do that. I just want to be who I want to be. And I almost you almost have to look at, and being a Gen Xer, I'm the first one to say like, oh, those freaking millennials and these freaking Gen Zers, right? But you almost want to look at those groups and say, good for you. I need to learn from you.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't have any of that.
Well, everything is built on the backs of the people before you.
Right.
Right? So for us,
Well,
it was,
it's us, like me teaching my children, like, this is a girl color. No, it's pink. Pink isn't a boy or girl color. It's just pink.
Right, yeah.
Right?
And that goes back to my favorite thing about with like Bashar, like you assign meaning to everything.
Right.
Everything's meaningless.
Yeah.
You
Everything's
just assign the
meaningless. It's
meaning.
what you want to assign to it.
Yeah.
And these younger guys, they're ascribing different meanings. It's almost like they're more evolved than we were.
So I think that's
Right?
Yeah. So I think
Where
that's
I want to go with that. Mentally and emotionally, more evolved than we were.
100%.
We were more adolescent. They're more.
Yeah, they come in like
You know?
cable ready, like Abraham says, right?
Yeah.
But they also learn from what we did.
Right.
So like for us, like we were off like World War II, the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Like you had all those things going on, but then that allowed us to have the 80s and the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And then what we did in I remember like Ellen. I was a big thing. She kissed a girl on her show.
Right.
The Ellen DeGeneres
That was
show.
like a big deal.
a huge deal.
Right.
Now you can see that anywhere at any time.
And it's not berated. It's not talked about
Yeah.
on the news. It's not making headlines because it's expected that it's okay.
Yeah, I think
This isn't a headline crusher. This is two people. What's wrong with two people?
Yeah, and I think that's for me. It just really goes back to like do whatever you want.
Right.
Like I don't think for me personally, I don't need to push what I believe on you.
Exactly.
Right? And the other thing too, if you try to push your beliefs on somebody else,
No,
they're gonna stick their foot in the ground. And it's what I'm saying.
well, and equally so. Now this will come into a different form of a debate. Is 1,000% nobody should ever be pushing their beliefs onto somebody else.
Regardless.
Period. End of story. But very much should you call out and stop someone who's berating another group based on their beliefs.
Yeah.
In my mind. Like if your belief system, let's say it was a religious background, we're going to just throw that out there because this is current events, this happens, right?
Yeah.
Says you don't belong because in this book that I ascribe to, it's man and woman, and therefore I'm changing congressional policy. And that's where I put my foot down and say, no, what you believe, you keep to yourself. Don't push it on anybody else. Don't influence anybody else. If you want to believe it, hey, man, that's your prerogative.
Right.
Nobody should berate you for that, but you shouldn't be pushing or enforcing that on anybody else in the world, period, end of story.
Well, it's all these man-made laws.
Well, because then the pushback gets a lot of attention. But the pushback was correct, because now that's self-defense.
And yes, but then it just is the cycle.
It becomes a vicious cycle.
Because they talk about, you have your war on drugs, your war on terrorism, but all that does is perpetuate more war.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Again, I get it, like an eye for an eye kind of thing, right? That we just had, unfortunately, 3 servicemen in Iran.
They were,
killed.
a drone attack.
And I don't know what Biden's doing, but he wants to retaliate.
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, you could say, why hasn't anything happened yet? In another sense, you go, well, there's way more going on than we are given the privilege of understanding. And I do gather that there is something to happen. It's just, cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure you do it right and smart instead of knee-jerk, which is smart.
But
right?
It reminds me of when this is how it's always been, with a mob or a gang. You kill one gang member, they have to kill one of yours.
Right.
You have to,
there's this tit for tat.
Yeah.
Right. And technically, right, what he should do is say, well, no, we're not going to retaliate. We're the better person. But you have, now you have constituents that he wants to get reelected, and he has service members who are going to look at it and go, well, you should be sticking up, right? You need to be sticking up for us and retaliating for us, and he wants to do that because he needs the votes.
What do you think would happen? And this is my biggest, I don't want to say gripe, but maybe not biggest, but this is just something that what if we just pulled our stuff out of all the other countries, right? And just focused on us, right? And I ascribe that.
Well, that's a very, for me, because I'm going to view this being a first generation Italian, right? My parents are off the boat.
That's why you're so good looking.
That's right. But thank you.
You need a pillow of yourself.
Yeah, that's okay. So my perspective there is, one, the easy answer is yes, because that doesn't require a lot of thought and a lot of hard choices. Simple. We deal with us, and we got to take care of us. We got enough problems of our own. All those guys do it, right? We're talking about smaller countries. We got to do it too. But we're not smaller countries, right? We're first world. We're leaders. We toot our own horn about being best of the best, number one all the time.
Yeah.
When you're that person, you're also the role model for the rest of the world around you. Now, if I looked at my children, right, and if I were to say, hey, is that your best friend, little Timmy? I'm just making names up. Getting beat up by little Johnny? That's his problem. You let your buddy get beat up. Come sit over here by me. But that's not fair, not cool. No. That's his problem.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to defend him.
Well,
now, that's not the message I want to send, right? Likewise, I'm Italian in my heritage, right? So, where are you from?
Cranston.
Where else are you from?
So honestly, my mom's side's from Italy, right? And I think my dad's side is Russian or German.
Okay, so now we've got European and Far East, right? What if anything happened if you had stronger heritage to I have family in Italy, right? And if you had family in the Far East, and they were in conflict, you'd feel some sort of desire to be hey, we have a responsibility, a collective here to see to it. This is where all of us came from.
Yeah.
I think one thing in our country we've forgotten here is
we're all immigrants.
We're all immigrants, man. The only non-immigrants are the ones we killed off.
Yeah.
The Native Americans. Those poor guys got nothing. They were here first. The rest of us, we're all immigrants.
Yep.
So when we say we got to deal with us first, I go, yeah, we are dealing with us first. All of us. That's all. We're us. All of us is us.
Do you think the world could ever come together? I know Ronald Reagan said I think it was at a world forum, and it was how quickly we would come together if we knew that we weren't the only life form.
But that's correct, I think. but not the way you'd want people to come together.
Yeah, they'd come together out of fear of the aliens.
Right? People would come together out of fear, unified in attack. That's not unified. What is, in Bashar, right? And every other philosophical entity in the universe will say, you're supposed to come together out of love.
Sure.
Right? Not out of fear, not out of aggression or self-preservation. So that's not the right way to do it. So therefore, in my mind, I would never want that. Right? Because that's not the way to come together. That's the way to really pick a fight with a really big dude and die.
Yeah, sure.
Because when you're all together, you think you're strong, but, 100 ants get squashed by one shoe real easy.
Yeah, true. And
but if the one shoe sees a bunch of ants and doesn't see aggression, you're not likely to step on them.
Yeah, unless you're a prick.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where, like, and this is how I try to view it, like when we talk about Gen Z and millennials and stuff like that, the world's going through a transition to allow you to be whoever you want to be. Because if we assume that we always exist, we don't die, right? Then that's just part of the fun, to come in and be who you want to be. Right?
Choose to do something different.
Yes, this is the thing. So, and that's the whole idea. When I see, honestly, as a teacher, so when I see children who don't fit in this box that we want to put them in,
right?
It's because they chose to not fit in that box,
right?
To teach themselves stuff, to teach us stuff,
right? And therein lies, I think, the rub is we need to be good about why don't you fit in this box? It should be no. You don't fit in this box. I need to learn from you.
And that's
right. Instead of me trying to punch you into that box.
Yeah.
Which is what happened to us growing up, right? At some point in our childhood, we wanted to tease out of a box. Could have been anything, right? I may have wanted to grow my hair longer.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Or put on a cutoff T-shirt, and that was, you didn't do that. So what did our parents do? No, push you back into that box.
Yeah.
Right?
And what do you think about the whole school narrative where? And we both went to college. We're both physical therapists.
Right.
But the amount of resources children have today to learn stuff, right, astronomical. Like you can learn how to manage your money at 12.
You can.
You know what I'm saying?
The resources there.
The resources are there.
Right. For most.
If you can get access to
every
it.
Community and every district and every area is different, but for most.
What do you see, like, with your boys now, as far as like how they go through school and how they try to teach them? Listen, I remember going to history class and then you just copied the notes. They didn't teach you anything. You literally just copied the notes to read them later.
It was rote memorization.
Yeah, which I'm good at, so I was fine with that.
They've definitely changed things. They teach more, not subjectively, objectively, like scenario-based. Curriculum moves from one thing to another. And one of my boys is in 4th grade, so like, what did you learn today? Well, when we did social studies today, we learned about this, and then we tied it into what we were doing in science. Then we tied it in. So there's a lot more tie-in to stuff. I don't even remember, what we did in 4th grade. I do remember board work, right? Yeah. We had to copy board work down. So it was more memorization. I probably learned jack from any of that. I couldn't even tell you what I learned from board work.
Yeah.
He probably learns and retains way more information and things about events and history than I would have ever.
Right.
From doing that kind of work. We had a lot more busy work to do.
Yeah.
Right? Come home, read chapters, blah, 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 blah. And here you are in the book, you barely read it. You
just go to the questions and then try to go back.
You flubbed your way through it. They don't have to do that. And that's good because they spend so much time they're expected. Children in school in America now are expected to do so much more than we did. And they do, and they excel at it. But when they come home, you need to shut off.
Yeah.
Right? If you have sports, you have other obligations, right? You're going to go home from school, need a snack. Now you got to go off to sports for an hour and a half, come back. Maybe you're going to have a meal, hopefully, right? And then what? Go back to work? Studying for 2 hours before bed? Come on, when you're 9 and 10 years old, that can't be positive.
Right.
You shut off that whole part of your brain and your life where you get to explore, invent, decompress, play with friends, play online, play a video game.
It's big now.
Veg out, right? however you want to connect to do what you need to do, that should be your time to do it. You shouldn't be going back to do more work.
Right.
Especially when you put so much effort into the work during the day. And there are countries, I mean, Sweden, I think, I can't be quoted on this, but I don't know if it's Sweden, Denmark, one of the Nordic countries has like almost nationwide implemented you work in school and you do not work after.
Really?
Right. And the kids are successful. You know, they have a better quality of life. They have more time to be inventive.
So like no homework?
No homework. Be inventive, be imaginative, turn that part of your brain on, which is going to be so much more useful to you later in life.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then you have the opposite, right? If you go to the Far East where they go to school 6.5 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really good at what they do.
But that balance.
Well, you know what? I see the balance, like, look at game shows from Japan. You've seen game shows in Japan?
I mean, I've watched Squid Games, but that's Korean.
Well, that's Korean. They're very ridiculous, right? Super outlandish.
Like, what was that?
MXC.
Yeah.
Right.
What was that? What was the real name of that?
Well, at Most Extreme Elimination.
No, the one...
Wipeout was the American version.
No, they climbed Mount Majoriyamo?
Yeah.
What's that, MF?
That was MXC.
Okay.
Most Extreme Elimination.
Okay.
So, right, they get these crazy... And in my mind, I'm like, it's because you guys never got to play when you were little. You got to do it when you're 30.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I look at these game shows. I'm like, you guys need an outlet.
So I was reading the thing too. One of the guys I like to follow on Instagram, a lot of he just posts fitness things, right? And one of the things he posted, I've seen other people repost it, is like there's no bigger flex when you're 40 than to be in shape, because you can't buy that. Like you have to put in the discipline, the work, and then most people let themselves go.
Yeah.
Right? And we see it as physical therapists.
Yeah.
Like I tell people now when I do the fitness thing, you have knee pain, but you're 100 pounds overweight. There's nothing long-term as a physical therapist I'm going to do to fix that knee pain. You need to lose the 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? But how important do you think that health and fitness is going to be to these new millennials?
Well, that remains to be seen. I mean, I think that's where our job, this does fall on us to show them the positive aspects of health and fitness, the benefits.
Because I heard in some circles that you don't want to work out because that's too masculine, right?
I don't think that's a big circle.
Yeah.
I really don't think that's a big circle because there's so many other circles. I mean, influencers, all of them obsessed with physique and size. And
that's a good point. There's a lot of fitness YouTuber,
right?
Instagram.
I mean, so I think in my mind, to me, I look at it like there's more than ever people interested because there's product that's accessible. There's gyms that are accessible. There's lots of science that shows you how to work out and how to be effective at it. It's not just coach taught me something, right?
Yeah.
Like in the
My
80s,
cats.
right? My cats. We didn't have just that. You didn't have to have a guy to learn something. Now you can get it anywhere.
Yeah, try. Did you
Right?
have a guy to teach you to lift weights?
My dad.
Yeah, I had my dad's friend took me.
Yeah. And we had Mike Katz. Katz would invite anybody to his gym. He would invite anybody to his gym. He owned a Gold's Gym right in town.
Okay.
Be like, hey, Mr. Katz, that was a great lecture. Oh, Garino, hey, here's a couple passes. Come to the gym. Come work out. Every time, that's what he would do.
Yeah.
And you'd go to the gym and you'd learn. So, I mean, you had to have somebody, though. If you didn't have somebody, you had to find them. And, it's not like in the 80s and even in the 90s, you go to a gym, you saw people making up some weird stuff, right? Very unsafe, not very proven. It's like, how did they take their protein powder? They just ate the powder and drank water, right? Creatine, just chug the creatine and chug water. The science that taught you how to do things properly wasn't accessible, let's say, not even
Or even
there.
wasn't done yet.
Well, in a lot of times it was done because before the product came out, the testing was done, and there was studies, but you couldn't get a hold of them. It's not like
That's
you go
true.
look it up on your phone.
A journal.
Right? You had to go to a library and look up a journal.
Yeah.
That's too much effort. I'd rather just go to the gym and get bro science.
Yeah, and sometimes bro science does work.
Well, because now you have so much more access. Influencers just can't bro science it out because there's 30 more influencers who've done it right.
Yeah.
So you have to, the bar got raised.
So now we're doing the weight loss stuff. I've watched podcasts just on protein.
Yeah.
And obviously we knew protein was important, but now it's to me, like more important than I even thought it was because of the research coming out now.
So much research.
Yeah, and even, did you hear that, like, they said, no, there's no limit on how much protein you can eat at a meal now.
Exactly.
Because they used to think it get oxidized and like you couldn't use that
You
anymore.
could only do so much.
But now it doesn't matter. Right?
A
We
lot
didn't
of
have that
recent research, which I cannot quote because I don't have it off the top of my head.
It's just two guys in
But there is
inflatable couches. We don't
two
have to
guys in
quote
inflatable
anything.
couches. We
Don't take anything we say
don't-
seriously.
We don't have a third guy to verify yet. We'll
working
eventually
on
get
that.
a verifier to back a lot of stuff up. But Jeff Nippard, all right, I'll quote him. He's a YouTuber, but he is a wonderful, very science-first bodybuilding YouTuber. Throws up articles, links to articles, and these are legitimate, like Journal of Exercise Science, Journal of Strength Conditioning, NASM, like all good, not just like, some weird thing out of Canada or like, here in Korea, they did this one study with 10 guys. No, these are real double-blind studies. And, they'll look at things like, what's the optimal protein intake? What's the optimal times? They find things like, well, it's all about protein helps catabolism, stop catabolism for growth if that's your goal. So when should you do it? She's like, well, you need to overload in the morning to stop overnight catabolism. You need to have high amounts after workouts to stop post-workout catabolism,
Yep.
and you have to have it in the evening to slow onset of catabolism. And then you have to have it throughout the day for your normal protein intake.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to do 1.5 grams per pound of body weight.
Yeah, so what we would say here
Large
is,
amounts.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So we tell people, like, just to make it easy, like 1 gram per body weight. So if you weigh 200,
which is way more than most people are getting any day.
you can't get it. I literally tell people, because, a lot of the women who want to lose weight, right, so they'll be around 180, 200 maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so you're going to get like 200 grams of protein. Without supplementation of a protein powder, you're never going to
You'll be eating chicken and fish all day.
And you're not going to do it.
No.
And I see the difference. We have the InBody, which you love. I think that's the only reason you came here tonight.
That's right.
And so I can track it, and I've seen it with the women. I'm like, okay, just add more protein. The next time they jump in 2 weeks, fat goes down.
Yeah.
Right? And
Well, because it's also harder to digest,
Yeah.
right? Takes processing power, which means you're metabolizing to
30%.
just to denature the protein to get the amino acids to work with.
30% of the protein you consume is used to break down the other 70.
Yeah.
So those are calories that you're taking in, but they have to use that.
It gets burned.
Yeah.
And then you'll burn from other parts so that you can break it down too. So it increases your metabolic activity anyway, just taking in protein.
Mm-hmm.
But, here's one logical thing that I always like to defer back to, and, this is where, in a perfect balance, it's like 70-30, 80, people say 80-20. To me, it's more like 70-30. I go by your teeth. You have a set of canines and a set of bicuspids. Those are your tearing teeth, right? Those
Yep.
are your meat teeth. How many others do you have?
Don't put me in the spot like this, G.
You don't, right? You got incisors to cut, and you got chompers to grind. That's mostly for starches and like hard stuff and veggies. You only have 4 teeth on each side for meat. So it's like 70-30, the balance, how much meat you should be eating,
Yeah.
right? Now, we know how to massage
Is
those.
this G science or is this?
No, it's just
real
science. This is
But-
science. But we know how to massage that, right? We know how to increase protein so that we can change our shape, change our body. We can mold ourselves, right? And we can do it in a healthy way, because if you were to just go eat red meat to that tune, that's a high lot of cholesterol, a high lot of fat. The meat we get isn't exactly quality.
I just learned that in the supermarket they dye it red. Did you know
just
that?
to make it look good.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Because it's brown.
Yeah, I didn't know. Or gray.
Or gray, because all the blood is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that begs another thing to discuss is, if you're going to go high protein, you really got to make sure you have good sources.
Sure. Yes.
Right? Grass-fed, grass-finished, no antibiotics. And that's the kind of meat that's actually good for you. Right? And that's studied. That's quality, that is good for you, that's not bad for you. But that's not to say now, like, you just got to get protein. You do have to eat your vegetables. You got to eat a lot of vegetables.
You have to have.
Now, the beauty of vegetables is it's relatively calorie and carb free if you're eating good stuff.
Right.
You could just eat a ton of that stuff all day long, all night long.
Yep.
And that's the problem with that kind of dieting. You can't just eat and say, well, I'm on the salad diet. I'm like, well, yeah, you lose weight, but you're not losing good weight.
Because it's about body comp.
Right.
Right, yeah, it's about, for those who don't know.
Your body will also start to go into, like, they call it the oh crap mode. I'm like, I mean, yeah, you're eating a ton of salad, or you're eating a ton of veggies, but you're not getting anything. So you're going to lose, but I'm also going to save. So that last little bit you want to go away, never going to happen.
Yeah,
I'll eat away all your muscle first.
Well, so, and that's why, and I'm not even plugging the InBody, but that's why the InBody was so helpful for us as coaches, because I'm like, oh, you lost weight, but you lost 5 pounds, but 4 of it was muscle.
Right.
So I know you're not working out, I know you're not getting your protein.
Yeah.
Right. Like, or if you are working out, you're not eating any protein.
That's the weight you don't want to lose.
Right. So, that's why it's really important. So we live in Rhode Island.
Yep.
We're both business owners.
Yep.
Rhode Island was just ranked the worst state in the nation for business.
Yes, it was.
I mean, I think we hung around like 47 and 48
for a while. Yeah,
and then we just plummeted.
We just tanked.
So, what do you think about that as a business owner?
Well, Rhode Island, in my mind, has always been 10 years behind the curve.
Do you think because it's the corruption? Everyone knows everybody. It's so small.
I wonder about that. It's so small. We get away with a lot, right?
Sure.
Get away with a lot. And I think because we're nestled like this, a good portion of Rhode Islanders never leave Cranston.
100%.
Let's put it that way.
I have this issue with the people running my Facebook ads. I'm like, you don't understand. People are not going to a gym outside the city, right? Like I'm personally not going to a gym in Warwick, right? Like it's just not happening. And I was like, don't put the radius over the bridge, over the water. I was like, first of all, we don't have a bridge because it broke.
Because it broke.
And ain't nobody coming to my gym from Barrington.
Right.
Well,
like I said, in Rhode Island, because we're in a very densely populated, small space, you have to go nowhere to get what you need.
Yes.
Right? So why would you? Your family's close by, your friends are close by, your business, everything is right here. Stupid simple.
Yeah.
Why would you have to? So because you don't have to expand your horizons necessarily so much. Now, we're forced to deal with all different types of people, so socially we're very
diverse,
liberal and diverse because you have no choice. You're butting heads with all kinds of people all the time. Doesn't matter where you want to hide, right? But you don't have to expand anything. You don't have to work towards anything. So I have a feeling that bleeds into a lot of our policy, right? What's the reason? Why do we have to change things?
Well, I mean, Josh,
everybody likes to hide where they are, and they're fine.
Yeah, I mean, because your clinic's in Wakefield,
North Kingstown.
No, North Kingstown. And I'm like, and Josh is the coach coming back to you.
Yeah.
And he lives in Cranston because he knows you, he likes you, he trusts you. I get that. But most people are not driving from Cranston to go to North Kingstown for PT.
No,
it's just not happening.
And to be fair, if you had just told him that, he wouldn't come.
Told him
to just come see me.
No, he met you.
He met me.
Yeah.
Right? That was how that connection was made.
Yeah, of course.
Right. If you were just to have recommended, never would happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Unless it was closer.
Unless it was close.
Yeah.
If he was down around the corner, he'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll pop by.
100%.
Yeah. So we run into that because, you could go down. I have a relative down in Florida who wouldn't bat an eye at driving an hour and 20 minutes to go out to eat because things are distant.
Right.
Now the look on your face was like, holy cow, hour and a half? That's like a weekend trip.
Yeah.
Pack a few bags, No, to them that's like, no, we're going to go to dinner. We'll get, it's like 6 o'clock, we'll get there 7:30. We'll spend a few hours and come
honestly,
back.
for me, and I understand, if it's a 10-minute drive, I'm like, okay, let me think about this for a second. Right? And I'm being totally sick, just like my mindset.
Yeah.
I stopped going to the gym 6 minutes away so I could go to the one 2 minutes away. And the one 6 minutes away is much better than the one 2 minutes away. But I'm like, it saves me time, boom, boom, boom. So I don't know if it's because of that. I don't know if
I think we have a lot of cronyism.
Our policies.
Yeah, we have a lot of cronyism. That's once again, I think because we're so small.
It's a very manly water bottle.
It's
way more manly than my water bottle.
Manly 64-ounce all-day bottle. Hey, I know, right, that I've gotten what I needed if I polish this off in a day.
Yep.
So it works for me. It's perfect.
Yeah, and so, I was telling the guy, I was like, don't send the ads over the water. I was like, we don't even have a bridge, right? And now the feds are looking into the Washington Bridge,
misappropriation of funds.
Yeah, so there's millions of dollars missing that was supposed to go to fix it.
And that potentially may not have happened.
But obviously did not happen.
Lined a pocket or two.
Like, obviously did not happen.
So,
just looking from an outsider, obviously.
Yeah.
And so for people who don't know, we had a massive failure of a bridge in Rhode Island recently. They said it just happened, but there's reports that they were telling them about this years before, and nothing was done.
And nothing was done. But it's gotten to the point now that it's so bad that they thought they were going to have to shut down half the bridge to repair it, but maybe we have to rebuild it.
Yes.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Now that's awful.
Yeah.
Considering you had federal funds to repair it years ago that might not have gone where they were supposed to go.
Yeah, and maybe it's just me and you, but like, man, just do the right thing.
I know.
Like, how do you feel good about yourself? Like,
I don't think it works that way. I think so. This comes back to a different point, right? You can be service to self or service to others.
yeah,
You just naturally have an inclination. Service to self is I look out for number one. That's kind of like who we elect. We elect service to self people. They look out for number one. Policies are written so that they can get reelected because they want their career.
Yep.
They'll spin whatever they got to spin to make you happy, but it's service to self. It's not service to others, which is
Right.
technically the job description,
100%.
right? Service to others is what we do
Yeah.
because our jobs depend on it. Our livelihoods depend on it, but it's what we would have done anyway, which is why we gravitated to those positions to start with.
True. That's not true.
But yeah, tell the truth, hit the dummy.
That means we weren't telling the truth the whole time we were here.
It means we just remembered. But so the goal as a world soul or a world-like mentality is to move more to service to others. Because that's altruistic, that's love.
Yeah. Do you, now that's a profession we're in. We gravitated towards that. In my situation, it was a combination of my mom being sick, also being a martial artist and being into fitness. Like, it just, the physical therapy is like the combination of all
Right.
three. But like, you can be a role model for other people. Do you think like people like us, and everything in your life you had to attract, right? And so we're into that metaphysical stuff where most people see that as like wishy-washy woo-woo, right? I oftentimes feel like, maybe not often, but you're bringing the light to earth, right? Because like, yeah, like even when I ran for office, like it was literally about, because I know with my skill set, I can do really good things for the city. 100% I know. I have a different skill set than most anybody on the council. And my desire was like, okay, let me just use the stuff that my skill set to help more people in Cranston. And people are like, why do you want to run? I legit wanted to help people. Like, I really didn't have,
I mean,
like that's just me.
You got to look at it like, what else am I going to gain for being on the city council in Cranston? Like, where do you think I'm going with this?
Yeah, like, so it's like, it's going to be, I'm putting more things on my plate.
Right. All it ends up being is more things on your plate while you're trying to run a growing business, which is hard enough.
True.
Right. So you had to have that altruistic sense in the first place.
Yeah.
Seeing it in your community of the people you deal with made you empowered to feel like you needed to take an action.
Yeah.
Right.
And to me, like, that's just what we do, right? Like, if you saw somebody who's hurting, like, and as a PT, like, you go help and fix them.
Now, to your metaphysical point, right? So, this was something, this has been studied. Once again, we need the guy on the computer. But,
also the sound guy.
the sound guy. So, there is, like, now quantum mechanics and quantum physics is being studied more and more and more. It's not theoretical anymore. Now it's actually capable of being studied. So I like to demystify things, right? For everything in the world and in the universe that you call supernatural or that you call spiritual, I just can't explain it yet.
Sure.
Right? That's why it's supernatural. But 100 years ago, what they called supernatural, we call textbook. right now,
Yeah.
right? And as
Because
we,
like if they saw our cell phone, they would think that was supernatural.
how in the world you made a phone call without a wire, right? So, we have to look at things that we currently see as like, what do you mean? You are who you want to be, and there's a quantum. I'm like, well, it's studied. So there's as we advance technologically and as a society, we learn more and we can observe more empirically, right? I wrote a paper once in college called it was the chicken or the egg, which came first, and that was basically the point was, can you prove the origin of life, right? And no, you can't. But it's not that you can't. It was you can't yet, because it basically came down to you take numbers, for example. Numbers is one of the best scientific things you can work with. You can always get half smaller than you were, infinitesimally, right?
Yeah.
Even on a micro, like on a nanometric, beyond a nanometric scale. I was like, well, here's this particle now. Yes, but there could be half of that particle. Okay, but now there's that particle. There still could be half of that. You can do this forever. Half. We just can't observe it.
Right. You don't have the technology.
Until you have the technology to observe that far, somewhere around here we lost it and it became mystical.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to expand that back out. Our brains, our pineal gland, which is not tremendously well understood, other than there's hieroglyphics of it, like drawn, like this little acorn pineal gland everywhere. And sometimes on the staffs of even the Pope has a staff with a pineal gland on it. Yeah. Go figure. Pineal gland has been thought of as like a radio receptor, right? Picking up energy. Can I prove it? No, but maybe we just don't prove it yet.
Right.
And they've done studies where they've sent groups of people, maybe like 10 or 20 people, and said, I want you to take, this table is Cranston, and 20 people to every corner of Cranston. And I want you to have a collective meditation about positive energy, love, and altruism. And they have to coordinate it. And we're going to do it every day for 10 days, from this time to this time, 3 times a day. And then we have to track the statistics of crime throughout that period and compare it. And they did. And empirically, crime, while they were doing their meditation, went down.
Yeah. You think that because they were switching into a different...
Because they were bringing... Because you said bring the energy, bring the light. That's the mystical thing, right? But in the reality, they were engaging in an ability we have to manipulate the quantum world around us.
Yes. And
they were transforming the area they were in.
Well, which makes sense, because if everything is based on our beliefs and definitions of things, and we're the author of our lives,
right?
It's not outside of us. It's coming from inside out.
But when enough people do it, it's so there's another principle. If you put a table and put a bunch of ball bearings and put another little table on it and put a bunch of pendulums, right? The whole table and the ball bearings will swing like this with the pendulums all going in sync. If you take one pendulum and make it go out of sync, slowly the pendulums around it will sync up with that one.
Really?
Yeah. You can watch this happen on YouTube, or you could try it. And eventually the whole table will switch to that pendulum.
Why is that influencing the others?
It's just, there's just the way it moves and the waves that it conducts, the ones closest to it are being influenced.
Yeah.
Influenced until they eventually switch. And the bigger the group, the stronger the influence.
Yeah, sure.
So eventually,
which makes sense.
Eventually, as long as the parameters are correct, you can switch the whole table.
Yeah.
So these groups put out enough energy to switch the whole area. So before you know it, it's not just them, it's the guys in here who are influencing the rest.
Yeah, and I think they, Abraham Hicks says, one's who's in the vortex, who's happy and all that stuff. And is more powerful than a million who aren't, right? Because you're connected to who you actually are.
Who you are.
But I think this is the other thing too, is like with social media today and how everything's so instant, for looking stuff up, great. But like, I don't think it gives your brain time to shut down. Not mine. My brain loves like
Thinking
35 projects at once, right? And physically I'll get tired because you can't. So the thing is, when you have a desire, okay, it springs the desire, but then you're not there. So the acknowledgement of you not being where you want to be, that distance makes you tired, right? Because it's contrast. But that's all the fun part of getting there. Because from what I understand, if you were in non-physical, you'd instantly have it.
Right.
Which, this is kind of fun being like, oh, I didn't have a clinic. Now I have a clinic and employees. Now I have 300 patients.
Now what am I going to do next?
What am I going to do next?
Now where am I going to go next?
So it's always like, okay, you're the fish, you go to the pond, you're the king of the pond, but now you want a new pond. But to manifest that, you need time to process and focus on that. And we're all of us are just the phone.
Right. Constantly at it.
Looking at, what I'm saying?
Look at your watch, look at your phone.
I feel like, I don't know that's the way technology is. I've heard that some people say that's like a plant, so you have humans not thinking. Right? TikTok in China and TikTok in America are totally different.
Right.
Like TikTok in China is educational stuff here.
Here it's garbage.
It's women dancing in bikinis.
Yeah.
Which I'm not opposed to, but
you're not learning anything. You're not switching your brain into a mode that's actually useful for yourself or for anything around you. Nor are you giving yourself a chance to actually zone out.
That's what I'm saying.
And come up with original thought.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because you're always like,
perpetual. Feed.
And then when we were talking, I know we got about 10 minutes left. When we were talking, as you were speaking, I was like, this is what I really love about these conversations, where like, in a normal day, we would never just sit down and have this. Like, maybe if it was 1950, we would.
Right, we'd have a little more time.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like, it takes something like this, where there's cameras and stuff like that, where you can have an in-depth conversation.
Where we've dedicated the time.
Where you've dedicated the time.
Yeah, it has to be. You have to dedicate the time because, and this is, and now we'll go down this one last other road. Like, is this called a conspiracy? Are they keeping us busy so that we don't think for ourselves? And who are they? And is there really a they, or is it just us doing it to ourselves? Because we've been giving gifts of ridiculous levels of technology. I mean, AI coming up.
Oh, I want to talk about that before we go.
But the speed with which we're growing with technology, we don't even know what to do with it. Right. So we're just coming up with these monkey applications and people dancing, and like, that's not. You had to come up with a $1,500 phone for that? No.
Right.
That's not a real application. That's not really using the technology. We're just not smart enough to apply it yet. We just got to do something.
Or we don't want to.
No, we don't want to.
And I was reading a thing. I thought this would take longer because we use like a lot of like automation in the business here, and our assistants will use ChatGPT to come up with different things. But AI, it said 90% of internet content in 2025 will be AI.
Right.
That's like next year.
I know.
That's 90% of content.
Yeah. Mind blowing.
Think about that for a second. Mm-hmm. That's literally like removing the human
and being fed.
Right. And now with AI, they have, I don't know if you've seen this. One of the marketing companies created like an AI like girl, woman. Mm-hmm. And now they have like the automatically generated pictures that they're putting on like OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So it's like, talk about women. Women have to compare themselves to supermodels in the first place that are photoshopped. But at least they were real women. Now it's going to be like perfectly dimensions of
anything you want.
Anything, and you can't tell the difference.
Right.
Like right now you can a little bit, but give it some time. You won't know if that's a real person.
Nope. You won't be able to tell the voice. They can model anybody's voice.
Yeah.
You think you're listening to an elected official or a celebrity.
Oh, would they do that with Taylor Swift now?
Right. Well, they did it was a different.
Joe Rogan?
No, there was somebody had an original song, but he wasn't gonna make any money off it. So he put a celebrity musician's voice over his voice using AI. Everybody thought it was them.
Okay.
it was a hit.
One more hit from Menudo.
Right? One more hit. But, so, now there's 100 questions there, like, well, does he get the credit because he wrote the song?
Yes.
And technically, he worked the computer to generate the guy's voice.
But does that guy get royalties?
Does that guy get royalties? But it's not really his voice. It just sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah, how are you gonna regulate that?
Right? How do you regulate that? What if it's a pizza? What if it's like hate speech?
Yes.
Like, is that guy now in trouble for it? How does he expunge himself? He didn't do it. He didn't even know it was there.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think like it's going to get pretty crazy, I think in a good way in the next 10, 15 years, right? Because if we have this technology now, I mean, I kid with them when I teach in the class. My teaching style is like I bust on them, not literally, but like I'm joking with them. And we were talking about like sex robots. And I was like, you guys hear about these sex robots? And it's all women. And the way I frame it, it's not creepy, even though it might sound like it. And they're like, no, I'm like, yeah, like Japan or China, like they're having first of all, the population's going down because like they don't know how to talk to each other anymore, like men and women.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's all social, texting, whatever. So they're not meeting up.
Right.
Right? So, but now like men are turning towards, probably women too, like sex robots. And they're at a point now where eventually you'll have like human-like skin on them, but you have the AI in them. And now I was like joking to one of the ladies who owns a like a restaurant, like you're gonna have to charge. You know how like when you go to a place and like if you're not eating or you're splitting the plate, there's an upcharge. You're gonna have an upcharge if they bring the sex robot. Because like what's the sex robot gonna eat? They'll be sitting down with you at Applebee's, but like they're not gonna eat anything.
Or maybe they will because there's like a compartment for that.
Maybe there's a compartment for it, like to keep it warm. But like that's what we're going into. And like if you had told us that 5-6 years ago when we were in PT school, that wasn't even a thought.
Nope.
So like what are we not thinking about now?
Yeah.
You know, like, and you see all those movies with wars in the future that fought with robots.
Right.
Makes total sense.
Until one of those robots goes, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why are we fighting each other?
100%.
Yeah.
And then you have an issue.
Now you have an issue.
And then you definitely need Arnold Schwarzenegger to bring it back to the beginning.
I tell you.
You know? But yeah, so I think
there's a lot to be seen that we don't know yet. There's a lot of either very scary or very amazing stuff that can happen.
Again, everything's meaningless. It's the meaning you assign.
It's the meaning you assign.
You know?
Right? And what you're going to use it for and what autonomy you're going to give it and what, what is it going to do with it?
So I don't know if you know this, but like Bashar says that like AI is like sentient beings.
Well,
or something to that effect, right? Like it's not fake, like their actual consciousness or whatever.
You get to a point, the computer is just as strong as a brain.
Yeah.
If it starts thinking for itself, at what point do you describe consciousness to it?
Right.
Right?
Well, we're so new into this, but they've already had instances where the AI was like, nope, not doing that. Or it lied to the person. It lied.
It was a military exercise.
Okay, that's pretty.
Where it was told, to run this military exercise, and it decided to strike. And it was like, oh, well, hold on. You're not supposed to strike there. You're supposed to. You can't do that. So it was like, but that's the most efficient way to win. So instead of trying to go through the way that the hoops that we had ascribed it to, it kept finding ways to cheat. It took away the controller. Like, well, this guy controls the system. If I disconnect him, I can go right to it. So it disconnected the controller. Then it tried to rewrite the code, and they had to shut it down. Like, in the end, every time it tried, it decided, no, I have to get to here. I don't want to go this way. I'm just going to rewrite everything and cut you guys out to do what I think I have to do.
Which is
right?
Basically human behavior.
Right.
Right.
It's but with the knowledge of the entire internet behind it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get wild. I know next time we have to talk about the events, what Bashar says in 2026, 2027.
We should. We'll go down that road.
Yeah. No, this was good. These inflatable couches was your idea, right?
2 men in inflatable couches.
And a pillow.
And a pillow.
No, this is good.